For 2 consecutive nights, the residents of Downeyville, California, had been voicing concerns about increased coyote activity. Pets had disappeared, and signs of coyotes, scat, and tracks were prevalent along paths leading to the river and nearby hiking trails. As Mike gripped a boulder to pull himself up a steep section of the trail, he was startled by a chilling scream, the sound evoking an image of a small animal in distress, possibly being preyed upon by a coyote. The cries seemed more desperate now. He traced the noise to a ravine on his right, where Broad Creek flowed. Mike was familiar with this area and knew that whatever was making the noise was down there. Approaching the ravine's edge, Mike halted. The trail ahead made a daunting drop into the ravine, descending nearly vertically for about 100 yards until it leveled off near the creek. The descent offered no natural handholds, no vegetation, no rocks, just a test of balance on the treacherous slope. He paused to double-check his gear, ensuring everything was securely fastened before contemplating the risky descent into the ravine. The scream echoed once more through the air, now fainter and tinged with panic, as if the life behind it was fading. Mike's initial steps were steady, but the third betrayed him as the loose soil crumbled, nearly sending him sprawling. He flailed his arms, desperate to avoid a misstep that could result in a crippling injury in this remote area. Safely reaching the creek's bank, Mike proceeded with caution. It was then he noticed the numerous coyote tracks scattered around, the paths erratic, showing signs of a frenetic chase. As he followed the trail, the sound of distress grew weaker. Rounding a bend, Mike spotted 2 coyotes darting through the shallow creek waters, driven wild by the feeble cries of a beleaguered creature. The animals' plight seemed to fuel their frenzy, and in their fervor, they were oblivious to Mike's presence. Dropping his backpack and removing his hat, Mike gripped them as makeshift deterrents. Approaching the coyotes, he swung his hat and pack wildly, mimicking a helicopter, and yelled to scare them away. His tactics worked, and the coyotes retreated slightly, allowing him to advance to the creek bank. There, a distressing sight awaited him. A large hessian sack weighed down by rocks, its opening secured with coarse twine. Mike's heart sank as he realized something alive was trapped inside, struggling for freedom. He hurried over and began frantically untying the knot to rescue whatever creature lay captive within. After freeing the sack, Mike carried it to dry ground, still cautious to keep the opening securely closed. Unsure of what creature he might find inside, perhaps a ground squirrel or a small badger, he prepared for any potential danger. Choosing a clear, open spot, he placed the sack down, using his foot to hold it shut while he positioned himself to open it safely. Taking a deep breath, Mike bent down and cautiously loosened the mouth of the sack. The sight that greeted him was completely unexpected. A large domestic cat, soaking wet and nearly frozen, clearly exhausted and on the brink of collapse. The cat ceased its struggling and simply gazed up at him, its demeanor suggesting familiarity with humans. This was no stray. It was a pet that had been cruelly abandoned, left to a fate unimaginable. As Mike noted the cat's bloody paws and missing claws, evidence of its desperate fight within the sack, tears welled up in his eyes. How could anyone be so heartless? Wrapping his arms around the shivering animal, Mike pressed the cat to his chest, trying to transfer some of his warmth. He knew immediate medical attention was crucial. Swiftly, he wrapped the cat in his hiking coat and prepared for a rapid journey to the nearest vet. With the cat securely bundled, Mike put on his backpack and hat and began a brisk jog toward the main road. It took an hour to reach the road, during which he didn't dare to check on the cat, fearful of discovering its condition worsening. His focus remained fixed on getting help as quickly as possible. Mike harbored little hope for the cat's survival, considering the harsh cold and how long it had been submerged in freezing water. Nonetheless, he was determined to help as much as he could. Within minutes of reaching the main road, he flagged down a passing vehicle. A brief explanation was enough for the driver to usher him inside and speed towards town, pushing the limits of any speed limit. At the vet's office, Mike laid the hiking coat with the cat wrapped inside on the examination table. The vet carefully unwrapped the bundle, checked the cat's heartbeat, and conducted a thorough examination. After a somber assessment, the vet looked at Mike with a grave expression, suggesting that the most humane option might be euthanasia, doubting the cat's chances of recovery. But Mike wouldn't accept that outcome. He insisted on paying for any necessary treatments and implored the vet to try everything possible. Mike also reported the incident to the local authorities, who informed him that the lack of surveillance in the area and the time the sack had been submerged made it impossible to identify the perpetrator. The future looked bleak for the cat, who would likely end up in a shelter if it survived the clinic. Mike felt unsettled by that prospect. 3 weeks later, life had taken a gentler turn. Mike climbed the stairs to his bedroom and smiled at the sight that greeted him. The ginger cat, now named Garfield, lay comfortably in the middle of the bed, claiming it as his own. He looked up at Mike, let out a contented purr, and closed his eyes once more. In Mike's home, Garfield had found his forever place, a stark contrast to his grim past, and he was there to stay.